welcome to Clicking Balls episode. Who gives a shit? This one's about Formula One. We didn't really cover the opening episode of Formula One because it was a pretty shit-ass race in Melbourne. I mean, that's what you'd expect from the Melbourne track, but the race in Malaysia that was on the weekend was really exciting, and so here we are, first one for the season.
I think the main reason the Melbourne race is never exciting is because every team's still trying to figure out what the hell it's doing. The only great races we had in Melbourne when it's wet.
Yeah, exactly. The wet race in Melbourne is good, but a wet race will make any track an exciting race. I think it's just the circuit layout. It's just not conducive to overtaking and exciting races. That being said, there is the occasion that, certain things in the midfield can make it exciting. It's usually a crash, though.
Yeah. Actually, I think with the new engines, with the new electric recovery system, that extra boost will start rewarding people who, instead of diving into the corner late to try and overtake, are going to take a wider line and get out of the corner earlier.
Yeah.
And I think Melbourne is one of those tracks where that can help, especially leading onto the long round sweeping curves. You're going to have people they'll take a wider line, might pick up a bit of dirty rubber, but then when you can just drop the hammer early, dump your Kerr's energy and just really rip it out of that corner, I think there's going to be, as they increase the power of the energy recovery system, you're going to see a lot better racing.
Yeah, and especially in the Malaysian circuit, it's a bit more conducive to different racing lines with different cars, depending on if you've got a sort of a aerodynamically intense setup, or if your engine's just dominating down the straights. Your entry and exits can really make a big difference. But anyway, Malaysia. We started off. We weren't sure actually who was going to be on the grid after a pretty disastrous Melbourne Grand Prix. We had 11 finishes.
Yeah, in the end.
Poor old Jenson Button, the only man to miss out on the points. And that was surprising for McLaren anyway. He ended up retiring before the end, but he actually got to the end, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah,
it was a war of attrition, and he lasted the longest. And as long as it was good data, then fair enough. But he ran around the track the whole day and got nothing for it. Was anyone to do that?
Yeah, I think anytime you're lapped as a driver, you pretty much want to bin it.
Yeah, exactly. And especially, for historically, to get into Formula One, you have to be really good, and you have to be successful in the lower categories. And so to get to the pinnacle and then just to start sucking, it must just be heartbreaking.
Well, Button's had, for so long of his career, he had that reputation as a decent driver, but not really much chop.
Yeah.
It wasn't until his breakthrough year with the Brawn team, the in-between Honda and Mercedes.
Pretty much Honda just fucked up and went, pulled the pin, and turned out they had an awesome car in the works.
Yeah, and Ross Brawn was left to do the car he wanted, and he created the double-blown diffuser, which just let them absolutely dominate. The story going around is that at testing, Button's old man came down and saw the car, saw the times that Jensen was doing, and put $100,000 on to win the WDC at like 25 to 1.
It was something ridiculous like that.
Now, you never know if any of these things are true, but you can be damn sure there was money won there.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much confirmed. I'm pretty sure it was confirmed. But, in testing, McLaren struggled, but you get to Melbourne and you don't really know where you want to slot in, because there's all sorts of fun and games going on during testing, and it turned out to be pretty predictable on where it was going to end up. Maybe Red Bull was surprised about having to struggle a little bit, but
actually that is a funny thing. Like, the stories coming out of the Red Bull camp are all about the Renault engine being shit.
Yeah.
Which it is. It's about 80 horsepower down, which is you're firing on one less cylinder.
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
Because the engines run at 500 to 800 horsepower, depending.
I think they're up to 800, yeah.
Yeah. So 10% down on power. It's just a crazy amount.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when it's a lot hard to make it up mid-season. You've got the tokens which you've got to cash in for engine development, and Red Bull are the ones with the most tokens left. But still, if you've got no engines left and you're taking penalties, then there's not really a whole lot of point in having tokens in hand.
No, and they don't carry over either.
No.
So I think Red Bull have pretty much just realised they're so far behind in terms of engine, they're going to start focusing on next year's car in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, they've actually employed what's his name, Ilian Motorsports, who actually built the turbocharged. I think it might have been GM badged it, that's right. He built the turbocharged engine for Indy cars, and he got General Motors to badge it, or it might have been Ford or General Motors to badge it, and stuck it in an Indy car and just killed it. I think it was with, might have been with Penske team, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And Red Bull have employed him to help out Renault with their engine. So you can see the relationship there, it's fucked. They're not going to go too far.
Yeah, especially with Renault now looking to buy back in and get a works team.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. I mean, they sold off a while back, and then now they're trying to get back in. The thing is, though, there's still openings. Like it's not a closed field.
Yeah.
So if you're the two names going up are Toro Rosso and Force India, if you're the owner of those teams, you're not really going to be able to ask for a crazy high price.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty much rock bottom.
Well, that's it. And all the talk before the Malaysian race, it was about Renault having an interest in Toro Rosso. And I mean, with Toro Rosso finishing above Red Bull, you think, well, they might have had the intention to sell it, but if they're going better than their supposedly parent team, you can't see them giving Renault a bargain and selling off Toro Rosso when they're still doing better than Red Bull.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll stick. I think Red Bull's all over the shop at the moment. And part of that's probably because Ricciardo had such a breakout season last season.
Yeah.
And he actually said in the Melbourne race he was getting bored.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have the car that could push anyone. He had no chance of overtaking.
Yeah.
He was just trying to consolidate from the first corner.
Well, that's it. And like he'd be able to follow someone through the corners and set up an overtake for a straight, but the power's not there, so all the hard work you've done during the corners becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny to think, you got a bloke, young lad, driving at about 300 k's through a city street, and he's getting bored.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I've tried to drive through there for about 80 k's, and I was pretty excited. Yeah, I got the speeding fines to prove it as well.
I scared the living shit out of some ducks.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, the cops hang around F1 circuits to catch speeders.
Just ask Lewis Hamilton.
There you go. Yeah, well, doing some burnouts in his Merc a couple of years back.
I always thought that was kind of funny. Like, if he takes that, they find him for reckless driving.
Yeah.
Imagine that goes to court. You were driving recklessly. No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, let me call our expert witness. I guarantee you I've got better expert witnesses than you do.
Yeah. Here's the data from turn 1 coming out of Albert Park.
You were driving recklessly. No, I wasn't, and I can prove it. How's that? Because I said so, and I know more about driving than you do.
It was just a practice start, I think. That's what he's doing. But anyway, so back to the races. We headed into Malaysia with what looked like another Mercedes domination of this season. And there were a few factors that played into it, especially the heat in Malaysia and the humidity. And so we may as well go through the results just for anyone who may not be up to date.
Yeah, spoiler alert, but you're really not listening to this if you haven't watched the race.
Exactly. I mean, if you watched the race and then you haven't watched the race and listened to this, then you should wait for our beginner to Formula One guide, which is coming up. So we had Vettel from Hamilton, from Rosberg, and filling out the top 10 was Raikkonen, Bottas, Massa, Verstappen, Sainz Jr., Kvyat, and Ricciardo ran it out.
I just like saying Verstappen.
It's me too. Verstappen. And I mean, I could say Verstappen, but every time I hear someone mention it on TV, it's always Verstappen. And yeah, it just rolls off the tongue nicely. Finishing out, we had Grosjean, Felipe Nasser, Perez, Hulkenberg, and Roberto Meri making his debut in the Manor. Manor was an interesting past few months. They were in administration, and with all their creditors, they had a meeting and decided that in the best interest of the creditors, it was worthwhile pursuing another season of Formula One. And so the creditors said, okay, and they eventually got sponsorship to buy their way out of administration, and yet they rocked up to Melbourne, apparently on a lot of borrowed dollars from Bernie as well. We pitched in a fair bit to get them there, and didn't get to race because the engine they've got is last year's engine with 2015 software, which, you're trying to make apples out of oranges, it just doesn't work. And so 2 cars came over to Australia and the whole team, and they sat in the garage and watched the race.
Yeah, I mean, you get a good view.
Yeah, but, I mean, expensive fucking seats, though.
Pretty much.
Tell you what.
I do like that they made it, though.
Me too.
And it makes so much more sense if you're a creditor.
Yeah.
Because a working F1 team is worth, maybe $100 million.
Yeah, we're not talking about they owe, 20 grand, 30 grand. They owe hundreds of $1 million.
Yeah.
Probably not hundreds, but it's up there in the millions.
But if they said, nah, we're going to sell off what we got, no one's going to buy shit.
No.
You'll be able to sell off a bunch of socket sets, maybe a few helmets, and that's it, because everything else is so custom made.
Well, the funny thing is they did sell off some stuff, and old mate...
Haas.
Yeah, Tommy Haas.
I thought that was just rhyming slang for your ass. But, F1's been screaming out for presence in the US for ages, especially because they don't have much in the way of circuit racing in the US generally.
Oh, no.
Because IndyCar and NASCAR are all on very cambered ovals or...
Yeah, well, IndyCar will do more street tracks than NASCAR, but they're still, they still claim to fame as the high-speed cambered circuits. Yeah,
but I've got nothing against IndyCar and NASCAR. I think decent race series, but the whole F1 versus IndyCar thing isn't quite right. Just because IndyCar is more of a spec series.
Yeah,
F1 has a lot more development put in, and the racing's very different.
Yeah, exactly. The cars are set up different.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't need to like one and hate the other. You can love both.
Yeah, exactly.
It's absolutely fine. And I think both series provide something different. But the US is absolutely big enough to have both series, especially because US sport tends to be fairly insular. I mean, they have the World Series where only they compete.
Yeah.
But having the F1 drivers put on a proper F1 Grand Prix, not like the bullshit they had way back when Michelin and...
was that the
Bridgestone.
last one, the Brickyard, I think, in Indianapolis.
Yeah, Michelin and Bridgestone had a bit of a tiff, and I think it was the Michelin...
The Michelin's tore up on the track.
Yeah.
And the Bridgestones, there's only Ferrari and a couple of other teams. Might have been Spiker as well.
Yeah, there was only 3 teams.
It might have been the Ferrari engine teams, I think.
Yeah, and the teams that had Bridgestone tyres said, we're safe, and then the teams with Michelin tyres said, well, we're not going to race unless you let us get other tyres. And then Bernie, in his infinite wisdom, says, nah, you brought the wrong tyre, get fucked.
Yeah.
And it became a Mexican standoff, and they didn't race. So they had 6 cars going around, and every single person who bought tickets went, well, that's a fucking waste.
Yeah, go fuck yourself. That's the end of that.
And that's put F1 behind a decade at least in the US.
Yeah, and I think the best thing I think they kind of fluked it really. Well, at the time, building the Austin track was very good, but then when I heard they hired Herman Tilke, I was like, shit, now we're fucked. But he's come up with a cracker of a track, like just the difference in elevation in that circuit. And turn 1 is like, whenever you're going to design a racetrack, the Austin turn 1 is the way to go, where you've got the straight and then the whole corner opens up. So when you're trying to feed 22 cars through one corner, you've got room to avoid people.
Yeah, and take alternate lines.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's one of the problems with the Melbourne Grand Prix is straight off the start, it goes into that hard right-left.
Yeah.
Which means there's only one line through there.
Yeah.
Which also means that drivers, they can't see much around them. So you got the driver on the clean line, from pole, and he's going to turn in and take the racing line.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't, if he goes wide, then he's pretty much pointing 90 degrees away from where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because he can't take the second corner then. But the guy on position 2, who's coming up, and he's got the inside, so he's like, I'm going to try and take this corner tight. Always end up with a bit of a bang there. The drivers look out for it, but, it's the first race of the season.
Yeah.
Everyone's feeling pumped up. The guy who just got pole, is, recently from Mercedes, but, everyone's pumped up so far that it's amazing that any cars get through that first right-left.
And I think it's only, you're generally lucky that the good drivers are in the best cars because it's not the front runners that cause the accidents. It's the ones in the midfield that are trying to win at the first corner.
If it was Maldonado and Grosjean on the front, the race would be over by the first corner. Literally, there'd be a 22-car pile-up.
Yeah.
And that would be the safety car and the medical car included.
Probably a few spectators gone too, I reckon. I reckon Maldonado will find a way to get through a couple.
Oh, they'd be taking home some pretty decent souvenirs. I mean, you had a rear wing, probably a tyre, maybe a body part or two.
Yeah. So anyway, back on track. We're talking about Manor and their start of the season. And Haas F1 actually bought a lot of the Manor equipment when they put it up for auction. And they've also steeled up the Ferrari engine. And so Manor, they were looking in trouble, but I think what's kept them together is Graham Loudon. and his PR is excellent, exceptional, and he's saying all the right words, and looks like he's doing all the right things. And I think they're in competent hands, so long as they can get the cash to follow it through. And
Well,
I
yeah.
mean, if they don't, then they're just going to try and get it to a position where it's worth enough to sell off so they can pay off their creditors.
Well, the cash is the big thing. I mean,
Yeah.
you see Sauber running around pretty much with a blank car,
Yeah, exactly.
and it's terrible to see.
Yeah,
But that's the way it's going to be. You get a lot of return at the moment from F1 if
Yeah.
you're a global brand.
yeah,
But these days, so many companies are marketing more directly. Like they're not having one message for the whole world.
yeah,
You don't have one logo, even one company. You have parent
Yep.
companies who have subsidiaries in the US, in China, in Australia, all around the place. So it's much less common now, unless you're a AAA brand like Coke, McDonald's, high-end finance, or
yeah,
an automotive manufacturer,
yeah.
where you want one message globally. It's so much harder for the smaller teams to find sponsors who want to put their name on their car.
Exactly, because especially the amount they're putting towards sponsorship, it's no small amount, and in F1 that goes a lot less further than in the other series where you can get a lot more exposure. But with Marussia, I mean, their problem is they had not the win, but they got a point last season, which means they had
2 points, I think.
Yeah, 2 points. Whatever Jules got in Monaco, that was their
Yeah, you got 2.
their amount, yeah, which entitled them to quite a significant prize money towards the end of the season, and so that was taken into account as well. But if they didn't start the season, they don't get that prize money.
Yeah.
And so that's why it looks a bit shifty, where they just rocked up to Melbourne, had 2 cars in the garage, going, "Oh, software problems, we can't do it," and then gone to Malaysia, and Will Stevens is probably the unluckiest person there. He's not qualified. In practice, he did faster than Mary. And they've come through and gone, software isn't working. Stevens, you got to sit out the race. And I mean, there is talk that they just can't actually afford to put 2 cars on the track. And it seems there is a little bit of legitimacy to that. But I mean, Graham Loden came out and said, "Look, if we had them, if Will Stevens' car was running, we'd definitely put it on the track. Like, why wouldn't we?"
Yeah.
But the thing is, he'd say that anyway, even if it was to do with money. And it's the right thing to say. And so if it is to do with money, they're hiding it well. And to be honest, I think they're doing the right thing, because you don't want your sponsors to come out and say, "We've got no cash. We can't put cars on the track."
Yeah.
And that's not a good thing to be associated with. So we'll find out what plays out with that. But yeah, go on.
I'm really hoping that they do make something of it, just because it'd be such a great story. Because
Yeah.
to them, success would be making it to the final race.
Yeah.
And when you get a team who's working so hard, and they'd be
Yeah.
working, 15-hour days every single day just to get the cars good.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the cars to finish.
yeah.
So if they can keep the cars on the track, results can come. But,
Yeah.
you just need a wet race, or someone to go into someone else, or you get a high qualifying position in a place like Monaco.
Yeah, and the thing is, Will Stevens has proven to be a pretty decent driver, so it's not like he's just there on paying cash or anything like that. He's like a good talent.
Yeah, well, they don't give out super licenses for nothing, and unless you're Toto Wolff's
Yeah,
missus, and then it takes you 6 months rather than a few hours. But the other big thing, German Grand Prix,
Yeah.
not happening anymore.
No, well, it's only this year because,
Well, there's talk it may not come back.
well, yeah, and it's might be likely unless there's a few saviors, but there's a lot of cash in Germany that's tied up in automotive industry, so I can't see it failing. But the Nürburgring was going through a lot of trouble, went through administration.
They
and,
borrowed way too much cash on that motherfucker.
and just the way they've set it up is the way they're trying to make money out of it just doesn't seem smart. It's like, you've got to have racing there. That's just, there's no way about it. You've got to have series racing there. You'd want to see the Le Mans do the whole track, not the shortened circuit. But the deal they had was that they were alternating with Hockenheim for the German Grand Prix. And Nürburgring went through administration. Bernie Eccleston actually tried to buy it last year, and he got denied, and someone else, other investors ended up buying it.
Well, maybe because Bernie's under investigation in Germany for dodgy financial...
Well, yeah, I think he's spent enough time there. He's just going, "Oh, it seems like a good investment. I'll try that one." But the new owners just said that it wasn't going to happen, and Hockenheim tried to see if they could make the German Grand Prix happen, but they said there's no way it's going to happen. We can't do it financially. We can't do it in a time frame. Yeah.
And while it's a purpose-built circuit, it still takes time. You've got to get staff, catering, tickets. You've got
to advertise,
marshals. So the track's got to be prepared, and there's when you're trying to do it every second year, to then go turn it around in 2 months. Yeah. I don't blame him. I don't think it'd be safe.
No way. And you don't want to go there and mess it up, because apparently Germany's been the biggest drop in viewership over the last few years, and that's what they're really trying to fix. And a lot of it could be down to the circuit going insolvent with the Nürburgring. But viewers, and especially with Sebastian dominating for a lot of years, and even Mercedes winning last one, there's a golden age for German Formula One, and yet not turn that into viewership.
And Rosberg's Germanish. I mean, while he is from Monaco and has only been to Germany occasionally, he still claims to be driving out of Germany.
I think he's like a Russell Crowe Australian type of German.
Yeah, but he lost, so they might have given him back to Monaco.
Well, that's true, but then Monaco could have gone, what? Rosberg who?
Well, yeah, it's kind of rough when he's probably worth around $100 million, and in Monaco, that's your bare entry level.
Yeah, you're on food stamps in Monaco with that amount of cash. And so, yeah, we had an interesting race in Malaysia. We'll go back to that.
Well, first to retire was Ericsson.
Yeah.
Sauber are going to have a tough year. I think one of the funniest things that come out of Sauber, though, is Felipe Nasser. Because how many fucking commentators must hate having Felipe Nasser and Felipe Massa on the same fucking grid?
Well, because especially since he was the reserve driver for Williams. So imagine if he got a seat for Williams,
Nasser
Valtteri went someone else, if Valtteri went to Ferrari or something, and you got Felipe Nasser and Felipe Massa.
And they're both fucking Brazilian as well.
Both Brazilian, yeah. And but the thing is, with Sauber, like you were saying before, with the ability to have longevity in Formula One, Sauber, their only business is Formula One. That's it. They don't have anything outside of Formula One. That's their sole business, and it's very hard to turn a profit from F1 only. That being said, they've done very well to last as long as they have. And if you remember a couple of years ago when they had Kobayashi and Perez, who was his teammate? It was Hulkenberg, I can't remember. But Kobayashi got a podium in Japan, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they fucking gave him the ass and got someone who could pay a lot more, and had a shit season after that. But they've bounced back this year, and I think it's all just the Ferrari engine, to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
and a shit aero department that, doesn't want to concentrate too much on aero.
I think Sauber is a great team in the tradition of racing teams, in that's all they want to do. They just want to race. Yeah. And fair play.
Like Minardi.
But it's been shown that those teams don't survive.
Yeah.
You need to be able to use racing as a vehicle to sell stuff. Like Enzo Ferrari famously said that his customers are suckers. He only sells cars so he can race.
Yeah.
And I think that's the sort of attitude that most of the top-notch teams have. Like McLaren for so long didn't really sell much. But now with McLaren technology and the McLaren sports cars, they're trading in on their good name to do so many things.
Yeah, and the ironic thing is that it seems like it's been at the cost of their F1 performance. Because they sort of looked to boost up their out of F1 profits, and they did very well at it. They got technology into, I think it's Le Mans. I think they run McLaren CPUs, and Indy run McLaren systems. And I think there might even be some in NASCAR as well. I know they've got their foothold in the American market pretty strong at the moment.
Yeah, but I can kind of see how that can happen too. Like if you're in charge of the McLaren group and you've got a guy, say, working in superconductors or whatever. Or lithium batteries.
Yep.
And he's showing 10 to 15% performance year on year of the batteries.
Yep.
You can put him in F1, which, if the car does all right and it finishes, you might get an extra 10 million out of it.
Yeah.
Or you can put him in a development team where he's working on, say, the McLaren road-going car, or even just the pure technology where they sell the batteries.
Yeah.
If they have that battery improved, they sell that to other companies and they make, upwards of $1 billion going forward.
That's it. The first thing they do is go straight to the patent office and go, well, we've got this thing going on, so here we are. And and that's what the way it's done. That's why the technology is invented in F1 and passed on through other enterprises.
Yeah, and I think the other thing though with the current success rate of Ferrari, history has shown that this year's road-going Ferrari is going to be shit.
Yep.
Just because if the F1 team's going well, generally the road-going cars suck and vice versa.
We're going on the Top Gear logic.
Absolutely, as always. Without the trying to get sacked or punching a producer. We don't actually have a producer.
We don't have a producer, but if he was there, I'd probably punch him anyway. Why not?
Yeah, fuck it.
Support Clarkson.
He's been doing nothing.
And I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I think that Clarkson getting fired is, I think it's a very good thing. Not for the BBC, but for Clarkson, because I think get Netflix or someone to throw him his own show, get Hammond and May on board, and instead of doing 6 episodes a year, you've probably got a full season.
The only other thing I would like to see, and this is getting pretty off topic of F1, but Clarkson's gone from Top Gear. That's been accepted.
Yep.
And anyone who likes motorsport is at very least fond of Top Gear.
Yeah.
If you've seen the US version of Top Gear, Tanner Faust is on there.
Yeah.
He's a D1 driver, fantastic ability to control a car.
Racing car driver.
Yeah. He's done rally, drift, circuit, all that kind of thing.
Yep.
I would love to see him in the British Top Gear. Even if it's just for a special. Just because, especially with May, he tends to... He can drive legit.
Yeah.
But he tends to be the less adventurous of the three of them. And Hammond, he's average adventurous, and then Clark's just crazy.
Yeah, well, Hammond's pretty adventurous. He did drive a dragster into the dirt.
Didn't turn out so well for the poor lad.
No.
But you can imagine Tanner Faust in there. Clarkson drives loose, but not so crazy. Like he drives a bit silly, but he's old enough to know the car well enough that he never pushes himself beyond his skills.
Yeah.
Whereas Tanner Faust will fucking put that thing sideways every chance he gets.
Yeah, he'll be like, nah, there's a little bit more in it.
He's Stig level driving.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that would add another good dynamic. Plus, he's a little smart ass. So
wouldn't that be funny if he was the actual Stig for the UK show?
Geez, they go through tyres.
Yeah, fucking oath.
But anyway, back onto F1. The other thing, Fernando and Jensen, both coming in so damn low, both with DNFs. McLaren Honda has a fantastic history in F1.
Yeah.
Pretty much, if you've ever heard the name McLaren and you're between the ages of, say, 20 and 45 now, it's because of Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
No one says, I got in F1 because of Gerhard Berger.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably even Gerhard's family of that opinion. And I remember seeing Senna in the red and white car, the MP45, flying around Monaco, and he was just unbelievable. He was beating everyone by a second in a track where you only have one line.
Yeah,
but exactly. He was just narrowing every corner perfectly. And this is of an era where you had to fight the damn car. Like, there was no power steering.
Exactly.
They're driving around, the suspension's keyed directly into the chassis, so the car's vibrating, it's roaring. They're manually changing gears, and he's wrestling that motherfucker around. And he was just at a whole other level. But, and the modern McLaren, just it's going to take a while to get right. And
it is.
Everyone knew that, because Honda coming in as a manufacturer, as an engine manufacturer, they have the benefit of seeing what other teams have done, but they can't quite do it because they don't have the practical experience anymore.
Exactly. And the thing is, they didn't have access. I mean, it's one thing to watch what people do, externally, but there's a different thing to be able to study the data. And I mean, I'm sure McLaren saved some data from the Mercedes engine, and they gave Honda a good look at that engine when they had it last year. But that was last year. This year is a whole new year. And we've seen with Manor, they've got a Ferrari engine last year, and they've got the new Ferrari engine this year, and shit just doesn't work the same.
Yeah, I think it'll pay dividends down the track.
Yeah,
but I don't think they're going to have immediate success.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to be very late in the year before they actually start to score competitive points. And I don't think you can blame the drivers for it.
No, there's no drivers. Yeah,
Jenson Button's a decent driver.
Yeah,
you wouldn't say he's probably not in the top 5.
You don't fluke a world championship. You got to know what you're doing to win a world championship.
Regardless. Yeah, I mean he was in the prime car, but you still have to get around the track.
Yeah,
and beat your teammate, which is a bit easier when it's Barrichello.
Yeah,
considering he's never beaten a teammate, I don't think. But and then you got Fernando Alonso, who to me is the class of the field.
Yeah,
his ability to drive a car is beyond anyone else. And I know Vettel winning the race has gone a long way to redeeming his reputation.
Yeah,
but it's still not quite there for me yet.
No.
Especially because Raikkonen finishing 4th shows that the car was very competitive. Which you've still got to get the car around, and he did very, very well to get it home.
Yeah,
But the thing that always gets stuck in my craw was Coulthard calling it Schumacher-esque.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't think you can compare those two drivers for a start. Well, besides the fact they both have a reputation of being rather arrogant, which is a bit rough to say about Schumacher when he's in his condition currently.
Yeah, but I mean, that comes of being a racing car driver, really.
Yeah, well, I remember Coulthard flipping Schumacher off a few times driving around.
Yeah, they weren't best friends.
No.
It's fair to say that.
But bloke could drive. I think we can absolutely say that. And but I don't think they have a similar driving style at all.
No, that's not at all.
No, Sebastian Vettel tends to be a little bit more reckless.
Yeah.
But not quite as belligerent as Schumacher was. Schumacher would very much put his car on the point. Yeah. And just say, well, if you don't let me through, we're both crashing.
And it seems like Vettel is a bit more... I don't know how you put it, but he creates a better sense of brotherhood amongst his team, which apparently pays real big dividends in just understanding what you need and what you desire. Whereas Michael already knew what he wanted, and he goes, "This is what I want. This is what I need. All right, this is how we do it." And he had the common thread of being with Ross Brawn for a long time, and Jean Todt and those guys around Ferrari when he was with Benetton. And so he had that ability to really grow with those people like Sebastian did with Red Bull. But Sebastian's left Red Bull now, so you want to see how he goes through adversity. And that's why it's pissed you off that he won, because you want to see him struggle and have a car that's in no chance of winning a race, ever, for the whole season, and see how he does. It's just have that true comparison.
It's the same as what happened with Lewis Hamilton going to Mercedes.
Yeah.
Coming from, he was with McLaren from the time he was 12, essentially, with Ron Dennis. And then he goes into a championship-winning car. Yep. You kind of want to see, what can you do with a second-rate car?
Yeah, exactly.
Because to me, that is the real test of a driver. And I think it's brilliant when you see those guys pop up. Like
NASA.
Yeah.
In Australia, got 5th in a Sauber.
Yeah, and to me, that's above par.
Yeah, absolutely. And for his first race.
Yeah, and even the two Toro Rossos, Verstappen and Sainz Jr., they did fantastic to finish where they did.
Yeah, exactly.
So anytime they score points, that's over par. Under par, sorry. And so I think that's where it's interesting how each team will have a different goal. Yeah. Like, if you're Ferrari, Mercedes or Red Bull, anything less than a Drivers' Championship or a Constructors' Championship, you've got to ask questions, what's gone wrong? Just because they've been so competitive for so long. Ferrari always wants to win.
And that's it. If Ferrari didn't win, they failed. And that's with most of Formula One.
Yeah, and they've got the engine now that they could do it.
Yeah.
Because, the engine they can't really change. Aero, you can change a fair bit. But, and then Williams, they're up there again. And they're another team that they're starting to get a lot more off-track income with their Williams technology.
Oh, their Williams technology does great. Like, they win awards every year. I'm pretty sure last year was one of the most successful years for off-track revenue and things like that.
Yeah, especially as more cars go to hybrid. Just because with an electric motor option, you get a lot more instant torque.
Yeah.
And I can see most supercars from now on being hybrids.
Oh, absolutely. They're all heading that way. Even the new McLaren is a hybrid. And the thing with Williams is that they're not just inventing, they're not just coming up with profit-making ideas. They're actually inventing technology that's going to further our ability to drive, and even with safety and just what you conceive as driving or conceive as an engine is completely changing.
Yeah.
And they're sort of they and McLaren are at the pointy end of driving that technology and driving that direction and having a real say on where it goes.
Yeah, but anyway, we'll move back through the field as well. So above McLaren, we've got Crashtall Maldonado. Yep,
he's another DNF.
Yeah,
big fella.
He did come out and say that he's a good chance to score points in a clean race. It'll be interesting if he does have a clean race, because I don't know if he'd recognise one.
Yeah, no. I think his clean race is being that far behind that he just drives by himself for a while.
Or, dodge him cars.
Well, that too. And I mean, the funny thing is that theoretically, with the name Dodgem Cars, the aim is to dodge people. Maldonado, yeah, I think he's like from the literal perception of that definition and just crashing everyone.
Pretty much. He seems to bounce off more railings than anyone else. Or he puts people into them. But it's one of those things where he's so pumped up. And look, the bloke can obviously drive.
Yeah.
But maybe you just got to tell him to chill the fuck out a little bit.
Maybe you tell him, you're not ready yet. do a bit of time in the minors. Just keep your money, man. Save it up. When the time's right, you'll get into Formula One.
Bastard. Actually, if the Venezuelan money does disappear, he could be doing that.
Well, that Venezuelan money looks like it is disappearing because they had an overhaul of their government and got a new president or prime minister, whatever the fuck they're doing. And he's cutting back on those expenditures into sport, and the money that they're giving Pasta isn't any small amount. It's in the area of 20-30 mil. That's no small amount for Venezuela.
Well, yeah, I think Australian government spends that on staples.
Yeah, pretty much. Well,
they'll probably throw most of them out.
But I think that's what we spend on the Melbourne Grand Prix, actually. A whole lot.
Yeah.
But anyway, you can expect Pasta to crash because that's just what he does. And, I mean, all that money could actually turn out to be a loss for Lotus if they have to build him a new car. Not that he brought off his car this race because he didn't.
Anyway. After that, you got Mary, which finishing the race, brilliant for him.
Yep.
Up from that, you got Hulkenberg and Perez. Force India seem to have moved back.
Oh, they've gone. They've gone way back. But I mean, I'm not really sure why. They've got the Merc engine, but it seems they don't have the straight line speed as they did. But also, Tony Fernandez has got a lot of things on his plate at the moment. I'm sure Force India probably isn't at the top of his priority list. I know Queen's Park Rangers are getting demoted, and he bought that share off of Bernie Eccleston in that soccer team, and they're in shit. So he's losing money hand over fist. I think he had Kingfisher as well, didn't he? They went fucking bust.
Kingfisher, breweries, airlines, all that.
Yeah, all that. They're not doing so well. So it's not really a surprise to see Force India down there, but it just sucks for Nico Hulkenberg, who is one of the real talents on the grid, and he just doesn't get that break to get into good teams.
And everyone says that he's a phenomenally talented driver.
Yeah.
But, he just hasn't had that opportunity. He hasn't had that breakout season where everyone goes, nah, he's top class.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking driver talent at the moment, he's not even in the conversation.
Well, and that's because he's in the car to really prove what he does. But
Yeah.
remember, he was in the running for the Ferrari seat. He was in the running for the Lotus seat when that was a highly sought after one. Turned out to be a dud, but no one knew that at the time. But he's always been in the running and just got pipped out for one reason or the other, or just not being out of contract at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the top 5 talented drivers, I put Alonso at the top.
Yeah.
You've got to put Vettel and Hamilton in there, just because they are... the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And based on a lot of other people's opinions, I'd also put Ricciardo in there.
Yeah.
Being a bit biased myself as well, but
of course.
It's also everyone who's involved heavily in F1 rates him so highly.
Yeah.
And then to round out the 5, you could probably raffle off Rosberg. I don't know if current level Raikkonen is as good as he used to be.
Yeah, I mean, he is, but Raikkonen doesn't want to do a whole lot of work outside of driving the car. So you give him the car, he'll fucking hammer that shit around like the best driver ever. But when it takes to developing the car and having a shit car and going, look, where do we start? Go with this and whatever, and create an atmosphere like Vettel does amongst the boys, more or less.
Well, Vettel does seem to communicate a lot. Like, he gives a lot of feedback to his engineers, whereas Raikkonen famously was just leave me alone, let me drive.
Plus, Vettel treats his team like family, like they're his boys and that's it. And, they celebrate together, they, commiserate together, whereas Raikkonen, you can't doubt his talent for driving a car, but he's not that sort of person. And the thing is, you don't have to be, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's not his fucking job to build the car.
No, but I think it does help when everyone takes a team approach.
Yeah, the other person I put in there is Bottas. I think
really?
Bottas is he's a very talented driver, and I think we'll see once after this season. I don't think he'll stay at Williams. I think he'll get a gig, maybe even with Red Bull, if Raikkonen might be on his last one as well. But I think he'll definitely move along. Maybe McLaren if Jensen gets the arse along.
It'd be interesting with Red Bull because if they have a poor season, they may look at it. And Ferrari have shown interest in Ricciardo previously, and they'd love to have an Italian driver.
Yeah.
Failing that, having an Australian who's from Italy would be the next best thing for them. And he is treated like royalty in Italy.
Yeah.
Solely because of his heritage. And he did a great little piece where he went to his grandfather's hometown, went through, all the things, and it was really quite touching for him.
Yeah.
But the crowd loved him. They absolutely adored him.
Yeah.
And so if he did end up going to Ferrari, it would be a phenomenon.
It would. And you even hear on the radio messages, whenever the Ferrari team is approaching Ricciardo or whatever.
Ricciardo.
Fernando, you are approaching Ricciardo. And it's like, and I've even heard Dan, like, interviews, and they've said, how do you pronounce your last name? He's Ricciardo. That's how it is, yeah. That's how I've always pronounced it. I know it's not that way in Italian, but I grew up, that's what Dad said my name was, and that's how I pronounced it.
I remember him saying if I called myself Ricciardo at high school, they would have beaten the shit out of me.
Yeah, he said he got beat up enough as it was, just being European. He didn't need any more aggravation for his tormentors.
Actually, on Ricciardo, Kvyat finishing ahead of him. How do you think that's going to play out?
Well, I mean, Ricciardo damaged his front wing at the very first or second corner. And so he was down on a lot of times, especially there, it had to do with keeping your tyres the right temperature. They either overheated or you couldn't get them to work properly. But his problem were tyres, brakes, and just his front wing. And you look at the brakes of Red Bull, they recently changed brake suppliers. So I'm guessing it must have been some system operational errors, just sorting out some bugs in the system or whatever. But you can see every time they'd brake, they'd have a huge cloud of black brake dust coming from the front. It's like they'd redirected their exhaust to be blown out through their front wheel nuts. And you know straight away if it's like lap 10, that's not good for the rest of your race when that shit's happening. And
it seems like it's not venting properly.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be honest, fuck knows what it is.
Well, yeah, I don't think anyone besides a Formula One engineer could actually tell you from just watching it, and even then, they'd probably want to know more data. But, well, yeah, I mean, with Kvyat not starting for the first race, it kind of makes you wonder how he would have done.
Well, in the open racing, he didn't actually pass him. He got let by. So
yeah, well,
that's the thing is that, and from every practice and qualifying, he's still about half a second off. And I don't know if that's Dan outperforming the car or Kvyat just getting to terms with the new car. But he's still a fair way off the pace of Ricciardo.
But I just think it'll be good because now Ricciardo's got to catch him. Yeah. Well,
not really.
He's got points advantage, but he still has to make sure he wins. But he has to. You have to beat your teammate in F1.
Oh, absolutely.
It doesn't matter who you are. You have to beat your teammate, because if at the end of even 2 seasons, if you're 0-2, you're probably getting sacked. It doesn't matter who you are.
Exactly.
Raikkonen is probably on his last chance here. If he gets beaten by Vettel, which he probably is going to, they're going to question, well, why should we pay World Driver Championship money for a bloke who's not going to win a World Driver Championship?
I say, well, they have previously paid him $20 million to not race. So,
this is very true, yeah.
So I don't know if they're willing to blow any more cash on Kimi. I think they're just going to go, we'll just sit out, just drive out your contract and we'll move along. But I don't see him sacking him, not a chance.
No. But his contract's up at the end of this year, yeah?
I'm not sure.
I've got a feeling it is. And if that does happen, you'd have to say people willing to step in, it'd be Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, or maybe one of the up-and-comers.
Yeah. And maybe they'll get someone from their driver academy, try and bring some people through the ranks for Ferrari as well.
I think they're still a little bit away from consolidating that. I think they're looking at more drivers getting experience in lower formulas first.
Yeah. Well, Ferrari, a few different formulas that they'll stick drivers in as well. I know they had Kobayashi driving in their Le Mans class. It was.
With the Le Mans, though, it's a very different race.
Oh, it is, but it's just having drivers active in that system.
Yeah, very true.
Because, I mean, it gives them the opportunity to be able to be test drivers and things like that, and just have input, especially having Kobayashi still in the system. I mean, you don't need him to get in the car to be able to get some feedback about what they're doing and shit like that.
Yeah, true.
And the thing is, like, with Ricciardo, he's been dominating Kvyat through the whole preseason and all of the qualifying and pretty much practices from Australia and Malaysia. And it seems like there is a significant gap. And obviously we're biased towards Ricciardo, but the times have been pretty significant in regards to laps in anger with all things equal.
But the thing is, that won't matter at the end of the season. If Kvyat is ahead of him in points, Ricciardo's going to be under massive pressure.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But the thing is, the whole way he got that seat was through doing testing with Red Bull, and even though he's been beaten in the points by John-Eric Verne, they still gave him that seat because they could see that he has that speed, and he just needs that bit of luck or that bit of
fine-tuning, really.
Fine-tuning, yeah. But he's definitely got that speed. And so I think, so long as he doesn't get beaten on track, should be sweet. But all the times coming back says that he's well ahead of Kvyat in regards to pace.
You've got to feel a bit sorry for Jean-Eric Vergne. I mean, he was a fantastic driver who was driving in Toro Rosso.
Yeah.
And you could argue he was a bit unlucky that they gave the spot to Ricciardo in the Red Bull main team rather than himself.
Yeah.
But, with Ricciardo having a brilliant season and beating the reigning world champion, that they're not going to regret their decision.
Well, even in that way, he got that seat. They gave Ricciardo a chance to test the Red Bull in one of the tests, one in pre-season and one in winter test. I can't remember, but the thing is with Formula One, they're that on key. They know what the fuel amount is going to do to your time, what tyres are going to do to your time, and when they standardised his time with Vettel, apparently he was beating Vettel in those tests, and that's the first time he's driven the Red Bull car.
Yeah.
So they knew straight away that he had pace, and that's why they chose him over Jean-Eric Vergne, even though Jean-Eric Vergne was doing better in the championship and doing a bit better in qualifying as well. Was qualifying or racing he was doing?
No,
better?
Racing. He was getting out qualified by Ricciardo.
Yeah, that's right.
But Ricciardo tended to get a bit
that's right.
mixed up.
Yeah, a bit too pointy in his front wing.
Yeah, and traditionally, it's becoming an Australian curse, starting poorly.
Yeah.
Webber had it, and now Ricciardo tends to struggle at the start.
Yeah.
Then you see guys like Alonso, who they might be 7th on the grid, and by the first corner, they're 4th.
Yeah, it's just like Mario Kart, where you got to time pressing the button right so that you get the little boost.
Yeah, unfortunately, Webber and Ricciardo haven't seemed to be able to do that.
No.
But moving up into Mercedes and Ferrari, even this is only round 2, but even from now, you can't see anyone except them battling it out for the Drivers' Championship or the Constructors. And if it's not Mercedes, I can't see anyone putting any money on anyone but Mercedes to win the Constructors.
I don't see anyone getting past Mercedes. Although, who knows? It's a long season, and like we said, half of the race is development. That's half of the F1 race. It's not just racing around the track, it's development. And Ferrari have got the budget to match Mercedes as opposed to Williams, who last year didn't have that budget.
Yeah.
And so, I think you're right there. I think Mercedes will just dominate it. But, actually, maybe not dominate. I think they'll win it, but there'll be a lot of tracks where people will have a bit of even chance. But there are a lot of factors that come into it that are external as well. Like, the reason why Ferrari was so good in Malaysia was just because they could handle high temperature tyres a lot better than the Mercedes could.
Yeah.
And there's a litany of different reasons about why that may or may not be, none of which we will truly find out because that's obviously key to their success. They're not going to just make that information public. And that was with Toro Rosso as well. They did the same thing. I
think part of it too is driving style, though. Like Vettel has often been promoted for his ability to look after his tyres.
Yeah.
And even a couple of years back when he was stashing with Webber would often have to pit much before Vettel.
Yeah.
And Vettel could make the tyres last longer.
Yeah.
Ricciardo's famous for having his tyres last ages, pretty much because they're very, very good at their exit speed.
Yeah, and it's just being able to have that feel for traction.
Yeah.
There's no traction control, so you've got to feel the accelerator in your ass and whatever else you feel that vibration through to where that traction is.
Yeah, and if you floor it too early out of the corner, you get wheel slip and that degrades the tyre further, which is something Vettel's brilliant at. He avoids that degradation out of the corner.
Well, he's always been good at the low-speed corners. He's good at a corner exit.
Whereas Rosberg, not so much. He tends to go through his tyres a lot quicker than even Hamilton.
Yeah.
And Hamilton is one of the more aggressive drivers out there too.
I think Rosberg's good at going, all right, what's Hamilton doing? I'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, Hamilton tends to flat spot a lot because he gets on the ragged edge a lot.
But he pushes his braking points, and especially in, with these past however many years, there's been a fixed fuel amount that you start with and there's no refueling. Your braking points that are going to
move,
yeah.
They're going to extend.
Every single lap, they're going to be a little bit further. And so that's where you can make up time and really make up time from a good driver. But it's a very fine line. When you're traveling 300 clicks and you've got to brake within, 40, 50 meters, it's a very fine line between where you start braking and where you end up.
Well, yeah, and especially because those cars can stop on a dime.
Yeah.
And the negative Gs can be up to 10. So their eyeballs are flying out of their forehead.
Yeah, exactly.
But
here we are. We've got the third member of Clicking Balls just stopped in. We've got Heath.
Yep, keep going. So I'll set up.
Yep. We're just talking about Formula One going through the races.
Yeah, and we're back on to Vettel, and going on to let's look at the next race anyway, which is going to be
China. Yep.
I actually quite like the China track.
China's track's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Biggest straight. Oh no, second biggest straight on the grid. I think Abu Dhabi. No, maybe China does the biggest straight. Well, they're good at building, big long fucking straight things like a wall. A track there.
Yeah, the only problem is no bastard turns up to it.
Well, no, that's because it's usually delegated by the Chinese Communist Party who gets to go. I reckon.
Well, that and it's middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
And I actually really like coming into the final straight. How you have that little question mark sort of
like little hammerhead kind of thing.
Yeah. The inside out, which really tests the cars, because you've also got optional lines there, so you can take tight on the first little curve, and then as it widens out, go wide, or vice versa. Take loose on the first curve, have your apex a little bit further round, and take it in. So there's great opportunity to set up a pass, and then you're on the straight, so you can consolidate it or you can defend it.
Yeah, and especially there's other things that come into factor when going around the curvy section is that what's your tyre situation? Can you afford to really go on the ragged edge of the tyres and burn them up in the sake of speed? Or you take a different line that's going to give you a better traction point to hit the straight with and give you that higher, especially with the straight, where the earlier you can get into it, it's going to pay exponentially towards the end of the straight. That's where you make up that time from having that extra, just sacrificing a bit of speed through the corner to set it up so you can go straight out of it and get a bit of extra speed at the start of the straight.
Especially because it's a DRS zone.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that straight ends in a big hairpin, which you see so many drivers overbake it and end up going off and having to do a low-speed U-turn.
This is where if you qualify just in front of Maldonado, you're like, fuck. We've got to beat him off the line because if he gets behind me, I'm in trouble.
It will go fair up your ass.
Yeah.
But and then, of course, you got the hairpin and then short left into another DRS zone and a decent straight with a long sweeping right. And it's a fantastic track, I reckon. It's got everything you want in a track. It's got sweeping corners, it's got the tight hairpin, it's got the long straights, and then you've got some nice little technical areas. Yeah,
you've got the ability for drivers to prove how good they are as drivers, not just to be at the limit of their machines.
Yeah, corners that tighten, corners that open up. It really does test the car and the driver. And I think there's plenty of passing opportunities there.
Yeah. And I mean, if it rains, even better.
It'll be spectacular.
China is an awesome race in the rain, and especially where you've got such a difference between the track, between sector probably 2 to 3 is all curvy, whereas 1 to half of 2 is just all the straights. And so you've got that payoff between the cars that have gone for aero setups and the cars that have gone for fast setups.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's going to be a brilliant race. I can't see Mercedes being beaten.
Yeah.
But I think qualifying will show a few surprises.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think one of the things you have to look out for is the Sauber coming through in this track. I mean, the aero sucks, but the straight line speed may be enough that they can hold off the aero-rich cars and just, take them down the straights.
I think there'll be a lot of interest in how Toro Rosso does, having, a decent couple of results.
Yeah.
If they're able to beat the parent team again, it's going to put a shitload of pressure on the engineers.
But especially if it's a cold race and they beat the parent team, because a lot of time they were saying that their tyres, they look after their tyres better than the parent team, mainly because their aero is a lot different. And you look at their packaging for the engine. I've seen both engines with the cover off, and it's very, very different packaging, very different philosophies on how they've put that car together. And I mean, they've just got just as much legitimate right to win a race of Red Bull than Red Bull do.
Yeah. I mean, traditionally they tend to not fight for position so hard when the parent team's coming through.
Yeah.
But those drivers are still out for themselves, so they're not going to move over.
Exactly, yeah. And you look at Verstappen in the last race. He was going against Ricciardo and that, and going wheel to wheel and even bullying him around, pushing around the corners. And it was great to see.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Especially with the flack he copped for being so young. And I was just as guilty, thinking, 17-year-old, really? Racing F1 car? But it looks like he's got it. And I mean, Red Bull are usually very prudent in how they blood their young driving talents, so you can't really fault them for that.
I remember seeing Lewis Hamilton look at Verstappen and say, "You were born in 1997?"
Yeah, he's like, shit.
And I'm kind of the same way. That's only just happened.
Mm.
But and here's a kid, 17-year-old who's earning more than me by a long way.
And not a drug dealer.
He may know a few, though, by now.
Well, he is from Holland, so I'm sure he probably knows a fuckload.
But yeah, anyway, so who's your tip for China?
China, I can't go past Lewis, but as a dark horse, I love a dark horse. I'll put NASA in for a fourth. NASA in for a fourth. That's my dark horse.
You fucked more with dark horses than the Kardashians.
Well, the thing is, to me, the big one's going to be... Well, I want to see how Manor does.
Yeah. See if they field 2 cars.
And if they can finish them. If they can finish 2 cars, that's a win for them.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
You know, I can't really see how they're going to do a lot. Vettel will be the interesting one.
Yep.
I really want to see him fuck it up, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think he can stick with it. I think he can get near a podium.
Yep.
I think Bottas will be the one who might fill the
Stick it in somewhere where it shouldn't be.
Yeah, so I think he might get a third.
Yep.
And it'll be Mercedes 1-2.
Yeah, I think that I'll probably agree with that. All right, that's the end of episode Fuck Knows What for Clicking Balls. It's been Formula 1, and we'll join you again after the Chinese race.
See you later.
See you later.